Friends, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going to begin the funeral service for Ronald Gold.
Do you want me to do it at the beginning? Help me with the cutting. For some reason today my
Sure. Friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Ronald Gold. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask for you to please take a moment to turn it off or make sure that it's in the silent mode so as not to disrupt the funeral service. And we welcome those of you joining us online through the live stream. While your physical presence isn't here today at this moment, the family does appreciate and acknowledge your participation. Officiating today's services will be Rabbi Barry Schechter from Congregation Kol Emeth in Skokie. As we begin the service, the rabbi will lead the family in the tradition of Kriya.
Could I have those of you who are wearing the ribbons, do I need them up here to carry on the camera for the other people to see? Yes. Could you come over here if you're wearing ribbons, please? Those are the mourners who wear ribbons as a sign of mourning. We'll cut those ribbons and then we'll say a blessing. We'll say a bracha that we say on these occasions. Let's see if I can do this.
I'm torn. I don't.
Let's come together, yeah. And I'm going to say with you a bracha, a blessing, that we say on these occasions when we suffer a loss. And it begins Baruch Atah, you know that, and I'll tell you the last two words. Okay? So say it with me. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Dayan Ha'emes. Which is that's what we say when we suffer a loss. Mizmole David Adonai mi agabi alecha mi yishkon behar kodshecha olech tamim ufoel tzedek v'rover emet bilvavo lo rakol leshono לא עשה לראיהו רע, וחרפה לא נעשה על קרבו. נבזה בעיניו נמאס, ואת ירי אדוני יכבד, נשבע לרע ולא ימיר, כספו לא נתן בנשך, ושוחד הנקי לא לקח, עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Dear friends, we're here for a sad and difficult occasion to say goodbye, which is one of the most difficult things we can ever do, but also to pay tribute, to honor the memory of Ronald Gold, the son of Nate and Pearl, who's gone to his eternal rest, and leaves behind a family who loved him very dearly. First, I should mention his life's partner, his late wife, Sheri, who passed 11 years ago on exactly this date. And then we have here, of course, the children, Mitch and his Keri, Jason and Joshua, grandchildren Zach and Hannah, and Sheila, his sister, and late sister Barbara and her late husband Dave. And we're going to begin by hearing from the family Mitch is going to speak to us about his father.
July 13th. It's been an important date for our family for 11 years. July 13th was the date my mother passed in 2011. And now July 13th is the date we say goodbye to my father. That kind of symmetry is beautiful and fitting when I think of my dad, a man devoted to his wife with an intense love and commitment not nearly so common anymore. But Ron Gold was a complex man. Sometimes it just wasn't possible for my dad to maintain the filter most of us use to function in society. I have no doubt that there are a good many of you who have been insulted by my father, or worse yet, made to cry because of something he said. Despite this, Dad was a loving father and grandfather. Whenever I would call, he didn't want to talk about himself. He always asked about his grandchildren. Growing up, I cherished memories of Dad just being himself, chasing us around the house, playing Sasquatch, coaching us in sports, or taking us to baseball card shows. He loved playing softball, or just sitting around sorting his cards. When asked about my dad, there are a couple of obvious things that come to my mind. He was a hard worker. He was up at 4:30 every morning, out the door and on the 5:30 train downtown. Seeing Dad in the morning when we were kids getting ready for school just wasn't a thing in our house. I remember more than a few times we would take family vacations without him, heading down to Florida while he stayed behind because he had to work. Dad leaves a strong legacy as a White Sox fan, I'm sure many people know. His love and devotion to the South Side team was infectious, and we all became Sox fans. Not an easy thing when growing up in the northern suburbs. It's a passion we all continue to hand down, with only one detractor among us. I remember when I was 17. It was the summer of 1985, and my dad took me to a baseball game at Old Comiskey Park. It was just the two of us for some reason, and I remember just how much the whole experience was such a joy. Then suddenly, a man come bounding up the stairs towards our seats. I guess he worked in the clubhouse of the team, and he knew my dad. And from behind his back, he had a baseball. It was signed by the entire team, something my dad had orchestrated beforehand. And I still have that baseball on my desk, valuable to me because of the memories. The other major life lesson I learned from my dad was that it's everybody's responsibility to do their share. Who doesn't remember a get-together, a holiday, or a party at Mom and Dad's house where Dad wasn't standing at the sink cleaning dishes? He vacuumed, sometimes while guests were still there. And he showed us that there's no maid called Mom in our house. Everybody does their share. He understood his role as a provider, and he was a devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He gave everything for his family, and he was the perfect complement to my mom's love and compassion. I like to think that they are together again. For 11 years, Dad always thought about Mom, and we can all take comfort that somewhere out there they're together. Dad taught me the important things about being a husband and being a father. I will miss him. It's still hard to believe he's not back at Avador playing poker with the guys, helping a neighbor with a legal matter, or just enjoying the daily happy hour. Rest, Dad. You're in Mom's arms, together forever and always in our hearts.
Thank you, Mitch. That was really lovely. Thank you. I've spoken to you about your dad, your granddad, and I was struck by exactly the things that you mentioned, that the people in the family, the boys, the grandchildren, you saw someone who had wonderful, wonderful qualities that I'll go into in a minute. Something that people outside might have seen but might not have seen. He, as you told me, went to law school in Champaign. I asked how they met, and apparently she went out with his roommate. She didn't like his roommate. Hope the roommate's not here. He asked her out. And the rest is history. When I say history, I mean the history is sitting here. He wouldn't be here if not for that. So thank that roommate. Anyway, he was a lawyer. He practiced. He had a career with Jesmer and Harris. Jesmer was his mentor, you told me, and also a friend. And as you said, he worked extremely hard for the family, to make sure that the family was supported, that the family had a place to live and food to eat and education and all these things. He was utterly concerned about that. He was ethical, he was honest, he was principled. As you said, he was completely devoted to you, to the children, and to Sheri. There was nothing, literally nothing, that he wouldn't do for Sheri, who was, and I speak with moderation here, a very different person than he was, very different kind of person. But somehow it worked. And it worked wonderfully. The boys, you had your bar mitzvah at B'nai Tikva. But Josh, you had an additional bar mitzvah party in Israel. You had your bar mitzvah at the top of Masada. And you told me that for you, well, for the whole family, but especially for you, this is one of the signal experiences of your life, as something that you will never ever forget. You mentioned about sports, in which I'm not an authority at all. I know very little about sports. I do know, however, that this is as you alluded to, but you did it very gently, very diplomatically, that this, when it comes to sports, this is it's not a mixed marriage, but it's a mixed family, because there is actually one member of the family who is a Cubs supporter. I don't know if this is widely known, and please don't be angry, Jason. He's a proud Cubs supporter, but I'm sure that even though this could be a source of terrible friction and tension and contention, that I understand that it worked out okay, which also speaks for this family coming together, even over a matter as serious as that. As you said, he was involved in sports. This was a gift. He went to the White Sox fantasy baseball camp. And if he had time, he loved talking sports. I mean, this is something that was grist to his mill. He has cards, memorabilia more than anyone else, you said, he had games and card coins, and it was always kept utterly well organized. You went, I think, Jason, you would go to games with him, or was it others as well? It was you, I think, primarily. You had season tickets, the bleachers at Comiskey. Now, Josh, you told me something rather charming about him, that he could be very serious, but he had a sort of silly fun side. Zach and Hannah, you can confirm this now, because I didn't hear it from you, so correct me if I'm wrong. When you were little, you'd go to Grammy and Papa, right, every summer, and they'd take you, you'd have a jam-packed few days, right? You'd go to the Chicago Symphony, yes? Please nod, I'm getting ready. You went to Millennium Park, and then one day, apparently, Zach and Hannah, you were jumping up and down on the bed, right? Boom, 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 boom. And he told you off. And you were quite taken aback. But this confrontation turned into a fun ritual. You would remember it every time you were there. He let you do it, and whatever you were doing, he'd say, "No jumping." Am I right? Good. When I get things from a third party, you've been watching the committee on TV. You have to get it from the person themselves. I know you went to Yellowstone. You rented an RV, which is in such superb condition that it broke down every 500 miles. And from what you told me, he was not exactly a camping man. That wasn't his thing. He also wasn't Mr. Fix-It. But you did travel. You'd go to Florida to visit, to Fort Lauderdale, right, to visit Sheri's parents. So, I said you went. He often, as you said, did not go because he had to work. So there were vacations that were without him. She, of course, was a very big traveler, and he would go. He wanted to make her happy. I heard this from you again and again and again, that she was the star in the firmament around him. He would do anything on God's earth, and maybe also in the stars, to make her happy. Now, eventually, some of these vacations were not for him, and he said, look, I appreciate that you love this. It's not my thing, but if you want to go with a friend. And he just, the love that he had for her cannot really be expressed in words. But there's something else that I learned in talking to you, which is this, that he was, as much as he loved her, he was utterly supportive of his children. We control our lives to a certain extent, but we don't control the beginning of our lives. As children, we do not choose where we live, and where we live often determines the school that we go to and the education that we have. Now, as children, we do not control that. That is in the control, if they can control it, of our parents. And sometimes it happens that we can lose control of our lives. This happens, unfortunately. And we need someone there. To hold us up. In whatever way it is, it can be emotional, it can be financial, but to hold us up. Even if we have lost faith in ourselves, we need someone to restore it. And he was that kind of a father. So that, most children can say, look, if it weren't for my parents, I wouldn't be who I am and where I am. But in my case, that's a sort of minor thing, but it can be a major thing. It can be a major thing where you can say, if not for them, or if not for him, if not for her, whatever it is, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know where I'd be. But look where I am. And look what he did for me. And that was him. That was this man. And of all the things you told me, well, two struck me. One was his great love for his life's partner. But the other was this, what he was for his children. Again, there are not words to, I've said it, but in just thinking about it, I know how wonderful a thing that is and how extraordinary it is. And the immense gratitude that you feel and that you will feel all your lives for this kind of love. And you go on feeling it. And what a lesson that is. What a lesson that is for all of us. What a lesson that is for all of us in several ways. In several ways. When we see someone in difficulty or in potential difficulty, we're not sure. Well, let me go back. If you yourself are in difficulty, if I'm in difficulty, and I'm talking about extreme difficulty, I don't mean, my fingers hurting me or something like that. Although for some people that's a world catastrophe. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if we're in difficulty with our lives, and we're frightened. And fear can lead to despair. Despair means you give up. You give up. And it can be that others give up on you, which adds to the woes, which adds to the trouble, which adds to the fear and the worry and the stress. But if you can have someone, as difficult as it is not to give up on yourself, it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult not to give up on others, actually. And I've seen it and I know it. You have someone who has the strength, the moral strength, not to give up and to infuse this other person with a kind of, not a confidence, but to take away the lack of confidence and to restore them. This is something marvelous. So I'm talking about learning. We learn from those we love. You know that. We learn when they're here and we learn when they're gone from us physically. When we say our Birkat Hamazon, our grace after meals, the prayer that we say after we eat, and there are other prayers like this as well, and we have a blessing there, Harachaman hu yivarech, may God bless. And if our parents are present, we bless them. We say, may he bless now Avi is Hebrew for my father, but we don't just say Avi, my father, we say Avi Mori, my father, my teacher, because that's what a parent should be, a teacher. Now, as you said, he was a complex man. Most of us are complex. But here is something that we can learn from. First of all, generally, just the general matter of not giving up on yourself and on others. But more than that, of being there. It can happen that someone needs our help, it can be in our family, and we really feel, I don't have the strength, I don't have the time, I can't, this, that, and the other. 1,000 excuses can come up in one's mind, which are quite understandable. It's quite understandable. But it may happen that you're in that situation. It may happen that I'm in that situation. And you or I will think of him at that moment. And we hear or we see someone, could be in our family, could be someone else, needs help, which I can give if I gird up my loins, if I gather my strength, because they don't have strength, if I try to give him that strength, or her. If we do that, if this happens, if we act better than we would have otherwise just from thinking of him, you see, in a sense, he lives on then. The good that a good person brings into the world does not have to leave with them when they leave us physically. So I think there's something very, very powerful in that picture. You also told me, this is lovely, that they used to have in high school, they would vote on who had the best parents, you told me. They came up. They were voted best parents. You can understand why. And you can understand why, from thinking of the opposite of him. He didn't need things for himself. Well, maybe a Corvette. But you know exactly what I mean. So take whatever you can from this man's life. From what he did. As you say, he was complex, but there are these wonderful good things that are in him and that can continue to be part of your lives. Won't happen every time, but at certain moments. You are very, very fortunate. You're very, very fortunate to have had him in all ways. I know, coaching you. I remember, I think Jason, you said he coached the baseball teams, right, that you were in. I'm going to read you what you told me, because otherwise I could get into trouble. I've got to have it in your words. You said he was not a good coach, and you said you were not a good player, but you had fun. You had fun. That's another thing. See, I was going on before about something very serious, and I stand by it. But this fun aspect of him. We live in a very competitive world. So if we talk about a game, you think of the word game, or playing. Playing is even better word. That's supposed to be fun. People go crazy over games. The games are supposed to be fun. I think we've forgotten that completely. And when you tell me this, not a good coach, not a good player, but we had fun. Oh my gosh. What a wonderful thought. I'm telling you, don't quote me on this. I think at certain times when I see people going absolutely crazy over winning, that we need some more poor coaches and poor players who have fun. But that's a heretical thought, and please don't quote me as saying that. Anyway, as I say, he was a bracha, he was a blessing, you were blessed to have him. And Avim, I say, Tehei nishmatot tzurura b'tzor hachayim. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. And to him I say, Ron, lech b'shalom, go in peace. Gain Frieden, hobelechtigen Gan Eden, may your repose be in paradise. You will never be forgotten, you'll always be remembered in love by all who knew you. Amen. And now we're going to read the 23rd Psalm. If you open these little pamphlets, it's on the left at the top. Would you please join me in reading? The Lord, together, please. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. If you can, could you please rise? If it's difficult for you to stand, then please don't. But if you can, I'm going to say the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים. המצאנו כנכונה, תחת כנפי השינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים וזרקים מסירים את נשמת. רונלד בן נטופל שלח לעולמו, בעבור שאנחנו נצדקה בהזכרת נשמתו. בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בשאת כנף לעולמים, ויצרור לחיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוע בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the chapel. The interment and burial services will continue at Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. For those of you traveling with us in the funeral procession to the cemetery, please do keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashes are on at all times. Please be sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be providing several of the cars in the procession with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. For your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving to the cemetery and the funeral procession. And as we make our way through the intersections, if the car in front of you goes through, even if the light does change, please do proceed with caution and feel free to use your horn liberally, but please do make every effort to keep the procession all together. Following the interment, the family will be together at the Gold residence at 929 East Point Drive in Schaumburg, and they'll be together again as they return from the cemetery until 8 p.m. The family has also requested that any memorial contributions made to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. All of that information is available in the service folder that you should have received when you came into the chapel today. If you did not receive it when you came in, we do have it for you as you leave. And again, for those of you joining us online, all of that information is also available on our website. At this time, I would ask everyone to please stand and in place as we ask the pallbearers to come forward. Zachary, Hannah, Jill, Terry, Audrey, Paul, Jessica, and Joe, as we make our way to escort the casket, the family, and the rabbi from the chapel.